Welcome back to Neve's bedroom with more pillow nonsense. Today I'm going to combine two of my favourite things in the world, slightly obsessed with them. I'm really obsessed with them. Dan and Phil, as an entity, as a channel, I love them to pieces. I'm not doing this video for like fans or whatever. I love them. I think they're great guys. I think their content's really funny. I love their dynamic, and I've also got a massive obsession with astrology. Before everyone says, oh, astrology is a load of poo, it doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The logical part of my brain is like, what? So I was going to do 3 videos. This one's going to be Dan's chart, which I'm so excited about doing. I'm then going to do Phil's chart, and then I'm going to do their chart together in that kind of synastry way. Disclaimer, I am only very, very interested in astrology. I'm not an actual astrologer. If you're here like, wow, astrology is so silly, I'm a Gemini and I'm like quiet or whatever, there is a lot more to astrology than your star sign or sun sign. You know those terrible horoscopes in every magazine, newspaper ever? I don't believe them either. I think they're complete rubbish. Astrology in itself is very different to the whole, oh, you know, you're gonna meet a stranger thing. For the sake of people that are probably like, what? I'm gonna put in a random fact about myself, because in this world we live in, we're obsessed with just being nosy. I'm going to do a quick rundown of what each planet means. The sun is your identity and how you feel at your core, or how you're working towards it if you look into north and south nodes, but let's not go into that. The moon is your emotional nature. Mercury is the way you speak. Venus is what you're attracted to. Mars is how you attract people. Jupiter is your lucky kind of expansion, fun planet. Saturn is restriction. Uranus is free thinking, unconventionalness. Neptune is blurry idealism. And Pluto is intense ambition. If anyone out there is watching this video and thinks I've said something completely wrong, or they have a different take on it, or you're just really knowledgeable, more than me, please leave a comment, because I want to know how I can improve my reading. In Tabanoff, which obviously I own, their birth times were said, so that way you can kind of figure out their ascendant and their house placements, because without the actual birth time it's a bit tricky. Obviously they're approximate because they're round times, they're like 6:30 and 4, but in the morning. But I'm going to go with what I'm given. I'm also going to link websites I'm going to use down below, and I'm going to insert screenshots so you know what's going on. So, Daniel Howell was born in Wokingham at 6:30 in the morning. I usually use Cafe Astrology. I don't know why, I quite like the layout of it. And also you can click on the different planets on the wheel. So here's my laptop. Ignore how many tabs are open. This is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. What is an ascendant? An ascendant, or a rising sign, is how you look basically and how you present yourself to the world. Cancer rising. They look like little wooden creatures. Because Cancer's quite a watery, emotional sign, they often kind of slow down or make conversations a bit more awkward. So his sun is in Gemini. Everyone basically knows that. His moon and his Mercury are also in Gemini. Conjunction in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of... It's a very weird house. It's represented by Pisces. It's about everything that you can't attach yourself to. It's a very unstable house. It's a very watery house. It's a very weird house to have a conjunction in. It kind of means you're not going to be very sure of your identity, particularly because your sun's there, which is your identity. His Mercury is there, which I guess could mean his way of speaking is both quite fluid, and also he often trips over his words and gets confused. It's in the 12th house. Actually, I'm gonna see what the specific website says. Yeah, Mercury in 12th. He has difficulty expressing himself, especially when young. He works in remote and quiet places. He is discreet and philosophical.
And now I'm spending my days telling stories and opinions on the internet, like a philosopher who could be great, but just turns his brain to mush by sitting on Twitter all day.
I think that's very true. In quite a few live shows recently, Dan's been saying that he's, a very introverted person. He needs his own space to kind of work and think things through. Learning to communicate clearly is a challenge for you, but one that might put an end to feelings of guilt, of being misunderstood, and to attracting unpleasant situations or duplicitous people into your experience. Dan prizes being articulate.
I was brought up watching too much Winnie the Pooh, which is why I have my posh but not kind articulate voice.
He's always going on about talking very clearly, and he developed that on the back of duplicitous people and feeling quite outcast.
Now, if my utterly friendly and joyful personality didn't help me out in preschool, it definitely didn't help me out here, as for some reason being nice was clearly a bad thing that needed to be punished.
Moon in 12th, a curious and inquisitive nature, although more of an observer than a person who asks many questions. He likes peace and quiet and being alone. As sensitive as you are, you often have delayed reactions to your own emotional experiences. Often when Dan's shocked in gaming videos, or when something appears out of nowhere, for instance when Tabitha got abducted by aliens in that Sims episode, you can see how his emotions kind of churn in his head and he doesn't know how to react to it, and it often comes out very overcompensating. That could be easily to do with the moon, which is to do with your emotional nature being in the 12th.
What is happening?
No.
What?
What?
What just happened? Is she gonna come back? Do we need to call Mulder and Scully? Oh! She's back. Tabitha!
While you're a perceptive person, you are often either flooded with emotions that are hard to define, or completely out of touch with what you are feeling. Either extreme keeps you from truly discovering your emotional needs. Negative expressions of this position are avoidance of responsibility, using hypersensitivity as an excuse to oneself and perhaps to others for not participating, or emotional immaturity. So he has no planets in his first house, which is interesting, but he has loads in his 12th. The first house is to do with your sense of self and identity. Now for the facts. Fact number 1. I have never had a normal cup of tea. I've had green tea, I've had chai tea. I've never had like an English cup of tea. I don't know why. The second house, which is to do with finances, material possessions, just physical touchy-feely stuff, it's the Taurus house. He's got a lot here. He's got Jupiter, Venus and Mars, and all in Leo. This definitely makes sense to me because Leo is a very gregarious sign in the things they love. They're drawn to expensive things, and a lot of Dan's clothes are very high-end designer things. He doesn't buy a lot of it, but he's very careful with what he buys for the quality. He's very tuned into aesthetics. That's usually the Venus sign is what you're attracted to, and it's in Leo, and the Mars sign is also in Leo, which I think is quite interesting. Mars is how you go about your life, your drive. Having Leo in your Mars is a very kind of active placement, which I don't think makes a lot of sense, but then because it's in the second house, it shows that he's driven to create things of worth. So when he's trying to make videos, he says that he takes ages because he wants to fine-tune them. You are likely to be a hard worker, see, I thought it was. Although you appreciate the process and might be slower than some as you focus on the method and tend to each step deliberately and carefully. You love to produce things of practical value. You're ambitious when it comes to making money and acquiring possessions, but you might be impatient or impulsive when it comes to spending, like when he bought a can of air from Japan. You can be quite possessive, both of material things and of people. You like a physical challenge. Okay, maybe not. I do understand that quite a lot of this is kind of reading it as I think it fits, which is basically what astrology is, but I find it interesting, okay? I know that's no excuse. This is what I was thinking of. The world of the 5 senses is most important to you. You have a hearty appetite with strong stamina, and you defend your values fervently. The 5 senses is very important because Taurus is all about senses, and obviously the placements are in the second house, so he's attracted to and attracts people by being appealing in a sensy way. So like looking nice, presenting well, smelling nice, being very gregarious and open like a Leo. Kingly, if you will. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and the planet of big things, and it's usually a very positive thing to have it wherever it is. So this house has got a lot of good going for it. Fact 2, I haven't ever dyed my hair. Is that interesting? Probably not. This is its natural colour. It's kind of a gingery brown. I call it ginger because it basically is, but... Okay, third house, nothing in it. But it's Leo. Third house is to do with your interpersonal communications and your siblings. He earns good money without too much effort and he enjoys what he has. There we go. Fourth house is in Virgo. The fourth house represents the bottom of the chart, so it's usually your roots, your family, your house. And having it in Virgo is very interesting. I don't obviously know a lot about Dan's family. Having it in Virgo shows that he likes to keep his family life private. He keeps it under wraps. Virgo's a very kind of quiet and neat sign. He just likes to neatly keep it as is, and you know, it's not going to be directly involved or anything in his outward image, which actually links to the 10th house, which is Pisces. Again, a very wishy-washy sign in itself. Basically, we're not going to know a lot about Dan's family, but it had Virgo values and qualities. The 5th house is Libra. Wait, no, there is a planet in it. There's Pluto in it. That's very interesting. Pluto's the planet of destruction and renewing. It's reincarnation. It's intensity and drama. Having it in the 5th house means that you're basically drawn to that kind of thing because the 5th house is to do with pleasure, fairness and balance, but also loves having a good time and having a laugh. Having Pluto there might mean that your good times often have quite drastic and intense elements to them. Let's see what the website says. Oh, it's in Scorpio. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing about astrology that I didn't really understand for a long time. What's more pronounced if you don't have a birth time is that the houses tend to be equally distributed, obviously, because they don't know your ascendant. But they're not of equal size when you have a birth time. Dan has a 5th house that goes through both Libra and Scorpio, and so his Pluto is in Scorpio. He's got a trine with his Pluto and ascendant, so he has willpower and ambition and likes to have his own way, apparently. 6th house in Sagittarius. The 6th house is about health, goals in your life. It's about setting plans. Having a Sagittarius in your 6th house probably means you don't set many plans. Fact number 3, my favourite season is probably winter. I love winter clothes. I love Christmas. I like the smell of fir trees and crackling fires. Okay, 7th house, he has Neptune and Uranus in there. Neptune is represented by Pisces, and Pisces is a very, like I keep saying, wishy-washy kind of idealistic, rose-tinted glasses kind of planet. So it's interesting that he has that in the 7th house because that's to do with relationships and romance. And Uranus is the planet of Aquarius, and Aquarians are all about innovation and new kind of ways of being and relationships. So it's interesting that that's in the 7th house. Marries for love to show the depth of his passion, but may have a troubled conjugal life. His independence does not tolerate traditional marriage very well. If he does marry, he has little chance of finishing his days with the spouse unless the partner gives him complete freedom. You need a lot of freedom in your partnerships and do best in unconventional or non-traditional setups. You are likely to attract unusual, erratic people into your life, particularly in close relationships. Then in the 8th house we have Saturn, which again is very interesting. I know I keep saying that, oh my god. The 8th house is to do with death, but it's also to do with extremes, so like sex, death, taboos, what else? Finances, things that, you know, like scorpionic topics basically, things to do with Scorpio because it's a Scorpio house. Apparently he'll have a long life and natural death because Saturn is a planet of restriction, it's a planet of seriousness, so being in the 8th house means that every issue with the 8th house is taken very seriously in Dan's case. Fact number 5, I once fell out a tree and I landed on my butt, which saved me, unsurprisingly, because I have a big butt. He has a 9th house in Aquarius. 9th house is adventure and action, So he's going to have a very unusual, unconventional life, doing unusual things with his time, which I think is quite true actually. Radio shows and presenting and whatever, so... He has his midheaven in Pisces. He has professional success in solitary professions. And let's be real, apart from communicating online, YouTube is quite a solitary profession. The ideal careers would be something like an archivist, a librarian, or historian. Those are like my dream careers. Aries 11th house. 11th is to do with interpersonal relationships in a more broad sense. So rather than the 3rd house, which is more like your siblings, people you're close friends with from childhood, the 11th house is people you meet on an everyday basis and people at work, colleagues, people like that. And in Aries, yeah, the people are going to be full of vigour, solid-spirited, and they carry out everything they undertake. People are very vigorous on YouTube, and all these like clickbaity titles and videos and thumbnails, very Aries, very in-your-face kind of thing. Lastly, we have his 12th house, which I've already said is in Gemini. Is it in Gemini? Yes, it is. Anxiety or preoccupation concerning a dear one. Okay, I think the 12th house in Gemini basically means that your communication is a bit muddled. And particularly because his Mercury is there anyway, you know, he's going to have some very hard times kind of expressing what he wants to say unless he properly thinks about it. I forgot to mention, I am wearing a very Dan-esque kind of top. Follow me on all my social medias if you want to. I don't know what the accent was. I was wrong. It wasn't a poem, was it? It was this. Just realised I need an end screen, don't I? I don't know what these are going to be, but bear with me, okay? Thanks for watching. Goodbye.